G'day guys, I've attempted to make a few videos on buying a used Toyota Hiace. This one's a 2007 petrol. I'm having a bit of issues with my backup and memory and all that, so I've cleared a bit of memory. If this proceeds quickly and completes, I'll upload it, and if not, you'll never know it existed. Now, like any vehicle, the coolant, the oil, the oil has to be changed. Just because the logbooks are stamped doesn't mean that the oil was regularly serviced. You might see, if you look carefully, it'll go from 38,000 to 70,000, which I see all the time, and that's not good. Interior damage, dirt in the rails. It's all a given with these cars. Under the back seat here, in this model on, is a secondary air pump, so the battery's over there. You know, there's nothing under there. The air filter's under the front of the car. And that's the main thing here, the front of the car. I have got, even this one, is being pushed in a bit, right? I've gotten these in with leaks, like people off the street. Can you do a radiator? Can you quote me? There's no room for impact. If the front's been impacted, you can begin to see it if you look very, very carefully. When you go into this part of the car, it's extremely complex. They always have been. The front of the Hiace and Tarago, doesn't matter if the radiators, the engine was there or under the seat or whatever, is a very complex area, and there's no room for error, especially on these new ones. There's air conditioning and radiator there. They're designed to come out from this way. But yeah, have a look at that, because that might be the reason they're selling the car. Okay, when you have a significant hit here, despite it not being visible, it can mean a huge repair bill. So can exterior damage. Doors and tailgates are very susceptible and very, very expensive on these cars. So I'm now not going to lift this vehicle up and go under it. The engine is right back. The oil filter access is via a tray, but the sump can be drained easily from a window that's available. Under there's air conditioning lines, there's a serpentine drive belt, and stuff like that. Now, if people are going to hit, and I have seen them hit, they somehow manage to hit this air filter thing and the bottom there. It's not good, right? The engines are pretty good. This is not a video about the diesel, nor is it a comprehensive video about faults in these cars. They could have design flaws that I'm not aware of. I wish I had the time to look. I don't. So what I do know is that behind the water pump, if you see the red coolant there, that's from a previous leak. They've gone from plastic. There's a video I made on this vehicle. They've gone from plastic to metal on a bypass hose there. This vehicle is 2007 TRH201R Hiace. Very, very robust vehicles. You want to make sure the seatbelt buckles are working, because there's all sorts of dirt gets in there. Generally, you know, it's all about the structure of the car here and the maintenance of the engine. You're not going to find one, I don't think, in immaculate condition, especially if you're on a budget. So you can have exterior damage and continue to deliver your goods, stuff like that. But obviously exterior damage here, as I said, can be very expensive. You want to check tyres, registration, all that. But, you know, they're very, very good cars. But it's funny, like, you get a bad Volkswagen or a bad Mercedes Vito with 400,000, and they're managing to still drive, like, even if the gear lever actually flies out on the Mercedes and they push it back in. The Volkswagens just seem to go forever, even though the repair bills are huge, and at the end of the repair bills, the cars are worth nothing. On a flip side, with these Hiaces, when you get a bad one where the coolant's all rusty and the engine's been abused, you might as well just fucking throw it out. Whatever you've bought it for, you've lost. If the aircon's not going to work and the engine's abused, it's going to blow smoke and stuff like that, you know, you're just wasting your money. A lot of them get damaged glass. Always, as on any vehicle, check glass. And now that I've finished the main part of the video, if it cuts out, you can understand. I'll now lift the vehicle up. Because I did free up some memory. Okay, I won't. We're having issues with the hoist. It will go up, but I just can't do it right now. So under the vehicle, you will see oil around the gearbox in a lot of these Hiaces. And it looks like a rear main, but it's actually the plastic rocker cover gasket. Okay, so the plastic rock cover gasket leaks on all of them eventually, and it can be a really bad leak, and it always leaks at the back onto the gearbox. It looks like a rear main, and you can see it looks all clean, but if you look very, very carefully right up the top, you'll see a few drops of oil, and they drip down to where you can't see and then make their way down and stuff like that. This vehicle's got 175,000 Ks. His engine's in excellent order. He has had one issue with it. They do go through batteries as well. I think the batteries these days are just shit because it's every car with the batteries and stuff. You're not going to be able to see the brake pads very easily through there. I mean, there might be a receipt from the previous owner when the brakes were done, but that's not really a big deal. You know what I mean? You will incur greater cost at the back if that was not maintained properly. If it was over adjusted, the drums will be fucked. And with cheap materials that are oversized and stuff, you can get locking up on the rear wheels. And I will reiterate, locking up on the rear wheels, it's up to you on a test drive. And on a Hilux, it's the same thing. If you hit the brakes and the back wheels are beginning to lock up, there's a proportioning valve that in the old days used to fail a lot. But, you know, you're getting people fitting cheap shit, remanufactured brake linings and stuff. Just a bit of advice, with the brakes on Toyotas and Lexus, always use genuine. It seems to even go right down to the Corolla. The Yaris, you can get away with anything, but they're just fucked with the brakes. Like, they need the genuine material, okay? Even if they grind now and then. Now, this door is damaged. I did open it before, but I've got so many injuries, I just can't be bothered. This lamp is prone to failure. I've seen them out. This car made a video about just a few minutes ago in the morning that these lamps fail. Usually there's a wiring fault on the previous models, but I think on these that is a piece that needs replacing. This one came good when I tampered with it, but it wasn't working. Rear lights seem to almost always be cracked and damaged, like the Hyundai loads. The lamps are sort of in the way of loading, and they're in a susceptible place for furniture to hit them. But yeah, like, you know, no one in Australia changes brake fluid on time or at all. So we're not in Switzerland, but yeah, like if they've changed the brake fluid and stuff, that's great. But, you know, that's not what, you know, the diff oil, the brake fluid, it's not a big deal. What's a big deal here is the state of the coolant and the engine. The cost of fixing these things is huge. And even more importantly as well, or just as important, is that the car's not perfectly maintained and then has suffered an impact at the front that you can barely tell. Like, so I've had a few of these in cracked bottles, but then I've had a few with the radiators, which is down here, and it's very, very difficult to see. In saying that, you can get a good lamp and go under these cars. In fact, if you inspect this vehicle and drive it up on a curb, you could get your body underneath carefully to even check that rocker cover leak if you had to. The steering system is very robust. The tail shafts, you're not really going to have an issue, but obviously you want to check for driveline if there's a shuddering on acceleration. Stuff like that, it might indicate that the van's been overloaded. This is the preferred van for weight, with the eye loads bending the rear chassis if they're overloaded over speed humps and that. These vans don't bend chassis that I know of. They're very, very robust cars. But, you know, the drums, the brakes, the discs and all that, yes, they wear out. Yes, they're expensive, but you can afford that. You can always allow $1,000. You should always for stuff like that with any vehicle, even a $150,000 car. But with this impact damage, neglected engine oil and bad coolant, you might as well throw away whatever you paid in the bin, because the van will will make your life a misery. It will blow one water hose after the other, and water pumps and radiator, and the cost is huge. There are some very surprisingly expensive labour operations on these cars. You can get into high expenses, you know, with labour. They've always been like that. Even the Toyota Dyna, you know, if a Toyota Dyna is abused, stuff starts to get really expensive. Okay, but here the rack and pinion steering and that, not that I'm Toyota, but I've not seen them leaking. They are brilliant cars. This is the number one choice, besides not having two sliding doors, for this type of van. They do have an issue with the compressors. I've now recalled. Air conditioning compressors are $1,600, $1,400 or $1,600 genuine. The variable valve for them, because it hasn't got a clutch on it, fails. Maybe at overseas there are remanufactured units to a good standard, but here I managed to get a non-genuine unit, which was from Toyota, in a Toyota box for substantially less money. So there are other options, but when fitting a compressor on this van, you do want to try and get the genuine compressor. Okay, so that's probably affecting the earlier of the TRH201R Hiaces. Fantastic van, nothing to look at, but from where we stand, I've seen these things they just never die. Previously, when you get to these newer models, like any of the newer models, when they die, you die with it, right? They can't keep going on bad coolant and bad oil. They just block up and blow up. So the times have changed, but the quality of the vehicle is there. It's just a little bit more sensitive these days with this new design and newer type design and stuff like that. Hope that helps. But yeah, a lot of that information goes to any vehicle. You got to check the lights and the switches and the demister, and we know all that, right? But when you are going to base it on nice seats and a good exterior with over 200,000 Ks, one key and no logbooks, you're looking for a recipe for disaster. I've previously mentioned Toyotas are, to me, there's probably other cars, the number one indicator of cooked oil. Shows up straight away on the dipstick. Okay, this car's been serviced between 5 and 10,000 Ks for its life. Here, it's never been to Toyota, but the dipstick shows no discoloration whatsoever. When you get dark brown down the bottom and little pieces and stuff like that, you go in here, little bits and stuff like that, walk away. If the coolant is rusty, walk away. So you don't have to waste your time. You don't get to here. You open the front. If that coolant is brown, you shut it and you leave. You come here. If that dipstick is black or brown at the bottom, some people even sand the dipstick. If it's got sanding marks on it and the oil level's on minimum, stuff like that, you might add the oil and the car will be blowing smoke. It's happened to me. I had this little bitch sell me a fucking Volkswagen Golf many years ago. It was a mustard coloured Golf. I was besotted by the vehicle and she couldn't move it, and it was on a hill, and she tricked me and my dad. When we drove it home, the oil pressure light came on. She put it on the hill so it showed oil, and her dad was up in the window watching us. Put a litre or two of oil in it, and it was like Batman behind us. And then as I got through the city home, the gearbox got stuck in third gear. Stuff like that. People are very, very crafty. These days, people are more careful, but the crafty little cunts out there are even more crafty than ever, with logbook stamps that are bought on the internet. You know, you might see 3 workshops, and the stamp might like have a similar dimension to it, albeit be a different colour, and under the name of the workshop it might have a few numbers under there. They're forged stamps. Like, workshops don't put 92017 under the name of the business. I've seen a lot of forged books lately. The paper might be bleached a little bit too white, stuff like that. So be very careful, be very vigilant. But yeah, this car has its own unique design, unique to any other vehicle ever on the market. And yeah, it's fascinating here that you really have got not much room for bullshit. Anyway, I hope that helps. And yeah, Toyota, there's nothing like a Toyota.